Professor Grixtel had spent 6 months preparing the lecture series on Death World Species Tactical Vulnerabilities for the Hegemony War College. The course was classified at the highest levels, designed to identify weaknesses in humanity's combat capabilities should diplomatic relations deteriorate. His students, elite military officers from 12 different species, represented the galaxy's finest strategic minds. The irony was not lost on him that one of those students was Captain Sarah Chin of the Earth Defense Force, attending as part of the new interspecies military exchange program. Today we examine actual combat footage from the Zephyrian conflict, Professor Grixtel announced, activating the holographic display. This engagement demonstrates typical human tactical responses under pressure. The recording showed a battlefield on Kepler 438b, where Zephyrian forces had attempted to seize a human mining colony. Professor Grixtel had selected this particular footage because it showed a small human unit being overwhelmed by superior numbers, perfect for analyzing human limitations under adverse conditions. Note the human defensive positioning, he explained, as the tactical display showed scattered human soldiers taking cover behind improvised barriers. Isolated, outnumbered 3-1, limited ammunition supplies. Textbook scenario for demonstrating species vulnerability. Captain Chen sat quietly in the back row, taking notes with the same professional attention she'd shown throughout the semester. Her expression was unreadable as she watched her own species' apparent tactical disadvantage unfold. Observe how the humans cluster together when threatened, Professor Grixtel continued. This pack behavior is a weakness. Concentrated targets are easier to eliminate with area effect weapons. The footage showed the human defenders regrouping around a central position as Zephyrian assault troops advanced. To Professor Grixtel's tactical analysis, it looked like a textbook example of poor defensive doctrine. That assessment changed rapidly. The humans weren't clustering defensively. They were coordinating for a counterattack that defied every principle of conventional warfare. What had appeared to be desperate defensive positioning was actually precise tactical preparation for something the Zephyrian forces had never encountered. The counterattack began with what Professor Grixtel initially mistook for a human surrender signal. A single figure stood up from the defensive position, hands raised, walking toward the advancing enemy forces. Psychological warfare, Professor Grixtel explained to his students. Humans often attempt to confuse enemies with. His analysis was interrupted as the surrendering human suddenly moved with speed that made the recording equipment struggle to track her movements. In less than 30 seconds, she had eliminated an entire Zephyrian assault squad using nothing but items she'd picked up from the battlefield. That's impossible, muttered Commander Vex Thul, whose species possessed enhanced reflexes. No organic being can move that fast. The footage continued. The human, a female, according to the tactical readout, proceeded to systematically dismantle the Zephyrian attack formation using tactics that seemed to violate physics. She moved between cover positions faster than the enemy could track, turned their own weapons against them, and somehow convinced half the assault force to retreat by demonstrating what could only be described as creative applications of standard battlefield equipment. Professor, Captain Chen said quietly from the back of the room, may I provide some tactical context for this engagement? Professor Grixtel paused the recording, grateful for expert insight. Please, Captain. Your perspective would be valuable. That's Sergeant Lisa Rodriguez, 3rd Marine Expeditionary Unit, Captain Chen replied, consulting her own notes. She was covering the civilian evacuation while her unit established the perimeter. Covering? Commander Yathakar's voice cracked. She eliminated 47 enemy combatants single-handedly. Standard covering action, Captain Chen confirmed. Though Lisa was always particularly efficient at deterrent operations. Professor Grixtel stared at the tactical display showing the aftermath. One human soldier, minimal equipment expenditure, and an entire Zephyrian battle group in full retreat. "Captain Chen," he said slowly, "what does your species consider exceptional military performance?" Captain Chen smiled, and several alien officers instinctively moved away from her. "That's classified, Professor. But I can tell you that Sergeant Rodriguez was considered above average for her unit." The lecture hall fell silent except for the sound of various species breathing apparatus operating in distress mode. "Class dismissed," Professor Grixtal announced weakly. "Tomorrow's lecture on exploiting human tactical limitations has been indefinitely postponed." That evening, he submitted a formal recommendation to the Hegemony High Command. Under no circumstances should military action against humanity be considered. Previous tactical assessments appear to have been catastrophically inadequate. Captain Chen received commendations for her educational contributions to interspecies military understanding, and a request to guest lecture on why humans prefer diplomacy, a tactical perspective. The War College quietly reclassified the entire curriculum from offensive planning to diplomatic relations and conflict avoidance.